Once upon a time, in a bustling city filled with towering skyscrapers and restless souls, there lived a young man named Arjun. He was 28, sharp-minded, ambitious, and successful, or so the world believed. Every morning he put on his perfectly pressed suit, grabbed his briefcase, and rushed to work, where endless emails, meetings, and deadlines filled his day. The money he earned was more than enough to buy anything he wanted: expensive clothes, the latest gadgets, fine dining in luxurious restaurants. And yet, when he returned to his modern apartment at night, staring out at the city lights from his window, an emptiness gnawed at his heart. No matter how much he achieved, it never felt like enough. There was always something more to chase, something missing. One evening, as he sat in his silent apartment, scrolling through social media, he came across an old photograph on his shelf. The image of his grandfather, wise and peaceful, smiling warmly. He had once asked his grandfather, "What is the secret to happiness?" And the old man had simply chuckled, saying, "You will not find it in tall buildings, my boy. Go to Sundarpur, and you might understand." At that moment, something inside Arjun stirred. Perhaps it was exhaustion, or perhaps a deep longing for answers. Whatever it was, the next morning, he packed a bag and set off for Sundarpur, the small village where his grandfather had grown up. The journey was long, taking him far from the gleaming highways of the city into winding roads surrounded by endless fields of green. By the time he arrived, the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the village. It was a world unlike his own. There were no honking cars, no blaring advertisements, no rushing crowds. Instead, children ran barefoot, laughing as they played, and elderly men sat under ancient trees, chatting over cups of steaming chai. The air smelled of earth and blooming flowers, and for the first time in a long while, Arjun felt something unfamiliar: peace. As he wandered through the village, he met an old woman who observed him with knowing eyes. "You look lost, city boy," she said, smiling. "I'm looking for someone," Arjun replied hesitantly. "A man named Baba Anand. I was told he could teach me about happiness." The woman chuckled. "Ah, the gardener. He is not just a gardener, he is a giver of joy. You will find him tending to his plants, where the real lessons of life grow." Intrigued, Arjun followed the winding path she pointed to, leading him to a humble house surrounded by the most vibrant garden he had ever seen. It was a paradise of colors: roses, sunflowers, jasmine, and mango trees, heavy with fruit. And in the middle of it all stood an elderly man with a long white beard, dressed in a simple dhoti and kurta, barefoot on the soil, watering the plants with slow, deliberate care. "Are you Baba Anand?" Arjun asked. The old man looked up, his eyes twinkling with warmth. "I am merely a gardener," he replied. "And you, young one, have come searching for something, haven't you?" Arjun hesitated before nodding. "I have everything a person could want: money, success, a good life. But I don't feel happy. I don't know why." Baba Anand smiled knowingly. "Happiness is like a garden, my son. It does not come from what you have, but from what you cultivate. Would you like to help me tend to these plants?" At first, Arjun thought it was a strange request, but he agreed. He picked up a watering can and followed Baba Anand's instructions, pouring water over the roots of the plants. But even as he did, his mind wandered to his unread emails, to his deadlines, to his phone buzzing in his pocket. Noticing this, Baba Anand plucked a single white jasmine flower and placed it in Arjun's hand. "Do you feel its fragrance?" he asked. Arjun nodded. "Did you notice it before?" Realization struck Arjun. He had been so distracted he hadn't even taken in the beauty around him. "The first secret of happiness," Baba Anand said, "is presence. If your mind is always elsewhere, you will never feel the joy of the moment you are living." Arjun thought about this long after he left the garden that evening. Had he ever truly been present in his life? Had he ever paused to enjoy a sunrise, the taste of his food, the laughter of a friend? The answer unsettled him. The next day, Baba Anand gave him another task, harvesting ripe fruits and sharing them with the villagers. Arjun found himself handing apples to children, giving mangoes to the elderly, and placing bananas in baskets for strangers. With every smile he received in return, he felt something shift within him. Baba Anand said, watching him, "The second secret of happiness is giving. When you share what you have, joy multiplies." Arjun had always believed happiness came from gaining more money, more success, more recognition. But for the first time, he felt the warmth of giving without expecting anything in return. Days passed, and Arjun found himself changing in small, unexpected ways. He woke up early, walked barefoot on the dewy grass, and found himself smiling more. He spoke to the villagers, listened to their stories, and felt connected in a way he never had before. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Baba Anand handed him a small notebook. "Write down what you are grateful for," he said. Arjun hesitated but began. At first, he struggled to find words, but as he wrote, something beautiful happened. The list grew longer. The fresh air, the laughter of the children, the kindness of the villagers, the simple food, the stillness of the night sky. "The third secret of happiness," Baba Anand said gently, "is gratitude. When you focus on what you have rather than what you lack, you will always feel rich." Something inside Arjun clicked. He had spent his whole life chasing happiness like it was a destination, something to be achieved, earned, acquired. But happiness wasn't in things. It was in moments. It was in presence, in giving, in gratitude. When it was time to leave, Arjun no longer felt the emptiness that had once haunted him. As he packed his bag, Baba Anand placed a small potted plant in his hands. "Take this," he said. "Happiness, like this plant, must be nurtured every day. Water it, care for it, and it will grow." Arjun returned to the city, but he was no longer the same. He worked, but without stress. He still owned things, but they no longer owned him. And every morning before he checked his emails or rushed to work, he watered the small plant on his windowsill, a reminder of the secret of happiness he had finally found. And so the once restless seeker became the gardener of his own joy. And he lived not just successfully, but truly happily ever after.